The aqd of a nikah, he says it's recommended when the aqd or the marriage contract is done, is to do it with khutbat al-haja. Khutbat al-haja, as we know, inna alhamdulillah nahmadu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruh, like it said in Jumu'ah khutbah. This is recommended also to be said in the aqd of al-nikah and the marriage contract. And saying the three ayat, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi, the whole thing that we hear. So this is something that is recommended. Is it mandatory? It's not mandatory, but it's something that is recommended to start the marriage like this. Arkan aqd al-nikah, the pillars of the contract of al-nikah. Pillars, that means without it, without even one, the nikah is not valid, the marriage is not valid. The first one, having the husband and the wife without anything that would prevent them from getting married. Like, for example, if the woman or both men and women, they are brothers and sisters, for example, they didn't know that, or they, from fostering, from breastfeeding, they are not allowed to get married, or something like this. So, of course, they have to be not having anything that prevent them. Or the man is a kafir, disbeliever, and the woman is a Muslimah. This is not permissible. The marriage does not even get in place. There's no marriage if they get married, as if they're living in haram. So there has to be both, not having anything that would prevent them from getting married. Or, of course, a woman that is married, for example, or something like this. Or a man married 4 and wants to marry 5. So all of the mawani' al-shar'iyya, all the religious things that would prevent the person from getting married, has to be not there. So this is the first rukn, the first pillar, that they have the ability shar'an, religiously, to get married. The second pillar is husul al-ijab. Al-ijab is a word that is being said from the wali, from the guardian of the woman, or the one that is act in his as a proxy, or like in his presence or in his absence, that the wali would say, I want someone else to act on my behalf, that he would say to the husband, or the one that the husband would appoint to act on his behalf, he would say to him, zawajtuka fulana, aw ankahtuha, aw ankahtukaha, which means I make you, or zawajtuk is that I make you marry so and so. And he would mention, of course, the name. This is al-ijab. Al-ijab comes from wajaba, or something that is mandatory, becomes obligatory. That means the marriage will be in place, will be mandated. But it's the word that would make the marriage. He's saying that I'm giving you my daughter, for example, for marriage. That means he's making the marriage. And then that's why the third rukn, or the third pillar, al-qabul, or the acceptance of al-ijab. So al-ijab is not just offering, it's making the marriage, but then the other side has to accept. So al-qabul is when the husband, or the one that is acting on his behalf, would say, qabiltu hada nikah, I accept this marriage. Does it have to be with the word al-nikah or al-zawaj? Some said it has to be these words. And with marriages, of course, the ulama are very strict in this matter, so that people do not have misunderstanding, for example. And fulana, who's fulana? Can a man says, I make you marry my daughter, and he has 5 daughters. Which one? Even though everybody knows who's which one, but it has to be said which one of them. And whether she's been married before or not, this is not necessarily, there, but this is also part of the contract, or part of if a man is going to marry someone that has never been married before, and then he discovers that she was married before, he has the right to break the marriage, of course. So can it be used with any other word other than that? And that brings the subject, can it be said in English, for example, any other language? According to like Shaikh Salih and others, that this is valid if it's understood clearly that this is marriage and nothing else. But of course, it's been the act where they say both. So they understand what they're saying, and also at the same time, they say it in Arabic. But if they don't say it in Arabic, it's valid and the marriage is in place. And what if a person is mute, is not able to say anything, whether it's with a sign language that is understood, or even writing. Writing is valid. And once the ijab and the qabul, it's called ijab and qabul, is done, then the marriage is in place. even if the person is saying it as a joke, right? And this is clearly in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So a subject comes, a mas'ala comes up. First of all, the hadith is ثلاث هزلهن جد وجدهن جد. Three things the Prophet ﷺ said. هزلهن, the joking about them is serious, is not joking, it's serious. وجدهن جد, and their seriousness is serious, of course. الطلاق والنكاح والرجع. Divorce and marriage and taking back his wife after a divorce. So if a man joking with his wife and he says to her clearly the words of talaq, that she is divorced, of course you would say you are, as joking, she's divorced. Even if he doesn't mean to divorce her. But he said it, clear words of divorce. Clear words of divorce. And that brings the issue when people, for example, they say these things in movies or plays or so on. And they bring the ma'dhoon, the sheikh in the movies. Of course, movies have many other things, haram, of course. But they bring the sheikh and he gets this man married to this woman with all the words of nikah and the ayah of the Quran and everything. They're married. Even if they're joking or playing. And it's a very, very dangerous situation. So this is, it happens even if people are playing and not being serious. It shows how that it becomes halal or it's haram with the kalima, with the word, and the importance of the word that comes out of one's mouth. Which is different, as we would see in the divorce. If a person says something that is not clear words of divorce, then we look at his intentions. So these are the pillars. Both husband and wife don't have anything to prevent them to get married, and al-ijab wal-qabul, these are the three pillars of a nikah or marriage. As for the conditions of the validity of the nikah, right, then it's 4. And the condition means that still, if the condition is not there, then the marriage is not valid, but it can be corrected. Different than the pillar. If there's no pillar, there's no marriage. But the condition, you can correct the condition. So, for example, the first condition is that each one, the husband and the wife, should be specified who you're talking about. Who's zawajtuk as this, and qabiltu, and I accept this. So, as the case of I get you married to my daughter, which one if he has more than one? And this can happen with pointing or saying or saying something that makes him, the tallest of my daughters or something, anything that makes it very clear who that specific person is. The second condition is both they agree to the marriage, the husband and the wife. And it's not permissible for one to be forced to get married. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تنكح الأيم حتى تستأمر والبكر حتى تستأذن. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that al-ayyim, the one that is previously get married, she should not get married unless she is given the okay from her. She has to say something. Would you so and so wants to marry? She said okay or no or so. But for the bikr, the virgin one that never been married because of the shyness that she has, she doesn't have to answer, but her silence is the acceptance. If she doesn't want to, she has to say no. But if she is silent, that means she accepts. So this is the issue of being pleased. What if a wali of a woman, he get her married without her agreeing to it, and with all of the different pillars and everything? The marriage is in place. But then if the woman is not pleased with it, or she says, no, this is against my will, then the qadi will break the marriage. Right? So if it's against her will, the marriage can be broken, because al-rida, or to accept it, is from the conditions. The third condition is that the woman has to have a wali to make the contract, and not herself. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا نكاح إلا بولي. There's no marriage except with a wali. So if the woman gets herself married, then the marriage is not valid. But what if this has happened? It can be fixed. Otherwise, the marriage is not valid. Fixed meaning that they would do the marriage again. Like say they didn't know the ruling, for example, or in some parts of the world, of course, according to Madhab Hanaf, they don't do the wali. So that's valid. It's a valid marriage in their places and everything. So not to invalidate the marriage of people, of course. But if it's in a place where the wali has to be the one to conduct the marriage, but they didn't know, and they get married without the wali, and they have children now, Is the lineage of the children valid and so on? Yes, of course. As if they are married, but it's the marriage to be corrected. Meaning they redo the marriage and the children are still, they take the names of their father and everything because it was a mistake. And the wali, who's the wali of the woman, is her father. And whatever the father appoints, if it's not the father. Then in the order of the awliya of the woman is her father. Then the next one is what the father appoints. The father is in a different country, for example, and he appoints his friend to be the wali of his daughter. Then the friend comes before anyone else.
Mother cannot be wali?
No, mother is not a wali. No, cannot. No.
If suppose father is not there?
If the father is not there, it's the grandfather. So the order is the father, then the grandfather from the father side, and above, if there's a great-grandfather, if the grandfather is not there. So this is the second one. The third in order is the son, if he is adult. And then the sons of the son, and so on, if they're all, of course, adults. Then her brother, the brother from both the father and the mother. Then her paternal brother, then the sons of the brothers, then her uncle from the father's side. Her uncle from the father's side, then her paternal uncle, then their sons. Then the closest of her asaba, the closest of her male relatives, right? Without any female in between. Exactly like the inheritance. Then the last one is al-hakim, or the ruler. If none of that exists, or none of that, of course, are Muslims, then it's the hakim or the ruler. So it's the father, and what the father appoints, and the grandfather and above. When we say above, that means the great grandfather and so on. Then the son, the father and the grandfather go up, and the son, the branch, go down. The son and the grandson and so on. Then the brothers of the woman from both sides. Then the paternal brother. Then their sons. Then her uncle. So the brothers come before the uncle from the father's side. Then the paternal uncle. Then their children, which is the cousins in this case. Then the closest asaba. Then the hakim. Okay, so this is the order of the wali. The fourth condition is the shahada, or the witness, the two witnesses. لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدي عدل. And we're not, of course, going to the differences of opinions, but we're just saying here. That means it has to be two witnesses, and the two witnesses also are to be men in this case. There has to be witnesses, or people are present. It doesn't have to be witnesses, those who would write or sign. When people are present, they are witnesses, basically.